We'll kick this off as usual with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'll join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I can establish that we do have a quorum. All 5 of the board members are here, and I want to thank the staff for coming to the evening meeting, well represented. Thank you. We'll go ahead and we'll start with the regular business. Ms. Madrid, do you want to just introduce this quickly or briefly?
So item 2A is for the board's goals and objectives for the coming year. And we did meet with the board president and vice president, and we reviewed several items that they thought would be good for board goals. And then we also included some organizational operational goals, which are the second half. And we've gone ahead and documented them all up there, just the titles and not the details. So
Good, thank you. I haven't seen the hand mic yet. All right, can everybody hear me okay? All right, what I would like to do is I would just like to start it off and thank the staff, first off, for doing a bang-up job on giving us the goals that you've got up here. I think they did an excellent job this year of giving us some good goals that we can start with at the meeting today, look at, prioritize, talk about, and try to get some semblance of what we're going to be doing in the next 12 months. The famous quote is, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? So we want to get something up there that we are going to be looking at. On a quarterly basis, we'll bring these goals back up and we will look at them again and we'll say, this is how we're doing on goal 1, 2, 3, all the way down the line. And that gives a much better idea as to whether we're making progress on these or not. Okay, so that's the plan. All right, we'll start with the board goals and we'll go through the discussion on those and everything, and then as we have time, we'll get to the organizational goals. All right. Also, you don't need to fill out a slip in order to speak. If you would like to speak at any particular time, just raise your hand and say, I would like to speak. The platform is right over there. Please try to keep it as brief as possible. We're trying to get out of here before it gets too dark outside, right? Or too cold outside. Board goals. What the staff came up with, and there's more detail in the pages that are out. Did we make enough copies, Haley, outside so that there were enough for people to get? Good. Hire a general manager. Public outreach. Continue to have more transparency in what the board and the CSD as a whole is doing. Advanced district strategic planning efforts. We don't have much of a strategic plan and we need to be doing that. We've gotten some standing committees now that are looking at strategies going down 2 and 3 years, and we need to expand on that and see what we really need to be doing. Complete regular permitting and other actions relating to the sustainable water facility. Finalize the multi-year infrastructure capital improvement program. All right, that capital improvement program as it currently stands is behind you. If you haven't looked at those Excel spreadsheets, they're very instructive as to what the plan is, what the amount of money we think it's going to cost to perform those different things, and kind of what the priority is that we want to get done. Develop the annual Prop 218 rate review process. Okay, when we passed the rate increase back in August, we said that we were going to review it every year to make sure that, yes, We needed that money. Let's go ahead and raise the rates for the next cycle. If we don't need an increase in either water, wastewater, or SWF funds, then we won't increase those rates, okay? So we want to make sure that we review those every year, and we need to have a process that we look at that prior to budgeting. Review the district code and consider whether direction should be provided to draft amendments, okay? And this is also, I would add to that, review our district policies and try to have them updated. Okay, so I'm going to kind of write that in here already. Okay. Review the district fee schedule and consider whether direction should be provided to make amendments. Okay. The fee schedule is if you want to rent this place, you're supposed to pay a X amount of dollars depending upon what kind of function you're having. So that's the kind of fee schedule that we're looking at. Emergency services review, very important to me. I'm sure very important to you. That includes fire, ambulance, et cetera, et cetera. What can we do to improve those services? And also what can we do to improve the readiness of our community for a fire if one should ever happen, okay? Very, very important, especially with what happened over this last year. Build-out reduction program, review of that, and committee and liaison goals. Okay, how do we deal with committee goals, liaison goals, that kind of thing? All right, let's start it off. Does anybody, Christine? I know you put in a slip. I know you want to say something, so please. Yes, ma'am. Remember to turn on the mic.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you for holding this meeting and Happy New Year. The board made significant changes in 2018 for which I congratulate you. The standing committees can be a good way to improve board efficiency, improve public participation and information, and get things done. Some things didn't get done, such as reviewing the Water Master Plan and conservation policies, but they await your attention in 2019. Cambria is ideally situated to become an example of environmental stewardship, a model of how good planning can lead not only to a zero carbon footprint, but a delightful place both to visit and to live. That vision already has a constituency in Cambria. The board can embrace the excitement of taking a leadership role in 2019. With every decision, take a long view. How will this impact Cambria in the next generation? After that, let this board be the one that tells the future Cambrians that they can look back and say, they made the change. On energy use, Director Rice mentioned purchasing vehicles that operate on alternative fuels. Great idea. Commit to using only energy-efficient vehicles. Develop an inventory of district vehicles and use it to monitor energy use as well as maintenance and replacement. Cambria should commit to overall energy reduction of at least 20%, leading to zero carbon footprint by 2024. Can we get an energy audit from PG&E so that we'll know where we're starting? Residents live in Cambria because of its unique attributes, located in the Monterey Pine Forest with a coastline protected within the boundaries of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. Commit to preserving the forest and the coastline above all. Without them, Cambria is just another town. Conservation is key of all resources. With the CSD board as the leader, marshal the support of the many organizations already in Cambria to conserve water and energy. Engage all Cambrians and our visitors in this imperative. The schools, the Chamber of Commerce, Tourism Board, the veterans, the Lions, the Rotary. Tourists come for our natural wonders. Let's help them. Ecotourism is responsible travel to natural areas that conserves the environment and improves the well-being of local people. It should have a positive impact on both the ecology and the economy of a given destination. How about adding home composting to garbage disposal? Many cities do it. As much as 40% of the food we grow is thrown away. Let's change that. Once the board has a clear vision of where Cambria is going, we can recruit and hire a general manager. Let's get off the merry-go-round of hiring general managers from other districts. Cambria is unique and needs a person with vision who sees this leadership position as an exciting and rewarding challenge. The public needs to be engaged in this process. Hiring another insider whom Cambria will later have to pay to go away, as happened with the past two general managers, is not acceptable. Start fresh with a person who embraces Cambria and has a 21st century commitment to environmental stewardship. Hold public discussions of how to find that person. For public outreach, appoint a staff member to communicate about meetings to the public. This meeting had only one mention in the Cambrian and my posts on social media. Step up with that notification. Clarify how the Brown Act affects local leaders. I often hear comments like, I can't say anything about that because of the Brown Act. The Brown Act guarantees the public's right to attend and participate in public meetings. Local political leaders, whether elected or appointed, have an obligation to tell the public what is going on. CSD directors could publish regular columns on their views, explain their votes on issues, describe what happened in meetings from their point of view. Raising the Brown Act as a barrier to communication is not helpful. Finances and infrastructure are so intertwined, the standing committees are grappling with ways to coordinate their meetings and work. That's good. Provide financial reports to the public showing how much is being spent on specific items, such as the lawsuit against CDM Smith over the brine pond. How much is this costing? What's going on with it? What lessons are being learned? How can we avoid litigation in the future? The central problem is the cost of the emergency water facility. With $650,000 in payments and $1 million in annual operating and maintenance, Cambria can't afford it. Go ahead and pursue that permanent permit, but consider capping the total amount Cambria is willing to spend. Give Cambria an annual accounting of how much it cost, so that the public can decide when to pull the plug. It's a constant subject of discussion because Cambria doesn't have enough money to do much besides pay for the EWF. It's time to explore avenues to relieve Cambria of this financial drain. How can financing be renegotiated? What can be done to decommission it? Is there some other organization that would be willing to take it? This is a 20th century, expensive, overly complex technology. It has put Cambria in debt without doing anything to add to the water supply. I say, time to stop the financial bleeding and find better, more environmentally suitable ways to meet our water needs. Arcata built marshes to treat its wastewater. Cambria should explore that technology rather than pursue more high-tech, expensive projects. Let's be a good example. Fire is on everyone. I'm almost done. Fire is on everyone's mind. 2019 is the year to hire a forest manager to implement the forest management plan. A healthy forest is more resistant to fire. Support construction and retrofitting that protects houses from fire. Get an evacuation plan. Make sure everyone in the community is ready to evacuate if needed, including tourists who are unfamiliar with our streets. Lodge Hill is bound by 2 outlet roads which intersect. Stop building houses, especially on Lodge Hill. The build-out reduction plan would allow construction of new homes on Lodge Hill. 85% of the lots designated for build-out are on Lodge Hill. This area already has limited access in the event of fire. Commit to public safety and do not add to the problems.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm probably not done.
Quickly,
Yeah.
We have a lot of what you talked about, okay, and we'll fill in some of the blanks, but one that we didn't is the maybe environmental and conservation. Is that a good, something that I could add up here? Okay, good. Anyone else like to speak? Hank? Oh. Jim? Yes, 2A.
Sorry I'm late. Thank you for having this open forum. I really like it. It's good, and that is something that we've often wanted to have. I learned from a dozen or so training sessions, managing departments, offices, marketing groups, and sometimes even whole companies. And some of the people on this board have gone to this SDA and so on and so forth. And they have professionals that talk about what is important and how to do it. And one of the most important things, I think, is to keep your eye on the mission. And what I don't see is the mission statement. What is the Cambria Community Services Board trying to do? Also, you focus on achievements and not activities. Sometimes there's a confusion there. And then measure and adjust often. Maybe I didn't do that. But if whatever mission statement or whatever activities you have, 3 months from now, measure it and adjust. So perhaps a CCSD mission statement could be provide cost-effective water, wastewater, and fire services to Cambria ratepayers. Really, that's all we should be focused on, or could be all we focused on. But whatever that mission statement is, that's where you direct your activities toward. Any activity costs money. So if you have a meeting, setting up agendas, there's hard costs and there's soft costs too, because the time that staff is spending at a meeting that isn't focused on the mission is not productive time. And here's a story. I was at the last infrastructure committee meeting, and I said, my wife actually helped me with this. She said, you have activity, what are your accomplishments? I said, activity should not be confused with accomplishments. And I said, I think on the infrastructure committee we didn't accomplish anything. And I apologize to those members that were there that looked me in the eye and were disappointed. And they were disappointed for good reason, because they had spent a lot of activity, and the only CIP item that we had changed from staff's recommendation turned out to be the wrong change, and we were going to turn it back to its original CIP plan. And I apologize because, yes, we did have an achievement. And the achievement was that we provided public support, public visibility to what was going on. And we promised that when we put out the rate increase. We said, we're going to show where this money is being spent. And I think we did achieve something, so I apologize for saying we didn't. On the other hand, the actual investigation of each CIP item was an activity, but it wasn't an achievement. So if a goal is to be achieved, then and only then do you add another goal. And the groups that I've been involved in, they say, have one goal. It's against human nature. You will not come up with one goal. You want to have more. So how about 3? But have 3 goals and work on those 3 goals. And if you achieve the first one, add another one. Because if you don't focus on what you are trying to do, you're going to be behind. So that's my suggestion. That's my hope.
Great input, thank you. Next, Hank. Oops, someone else in the back there? Not yet, okay.
Good evening. I'm Hank Kresak from the suburb of San Simeon, Cambria suburb, that is. A couple of months ago, I came before the board and talked about a potential regional wastewater solution for San Simeon State Parks, primarily hosted by Cambria, because it makes the most sense with your scale. And what I wanted to suggest tonight was adding that somewhere to your objectives. And I've handed out a couple of sheets of paper here that detail some of those things. And what I wanted to do was to see, and I've got a list here that talks about ways to get to a go, no-go decision over the next 18 months by first getting a memorandum of understanding within about 6 months, and then conducting a formal study of feasibility just to get to a go, no-go decision, if this makes sense from a financial or other standpoint. In November, Supervisor Gibson attended our board meeting in San Simeon, and then President Amanda Rice was there in attendance. And he talked about a way to get this thing off the ground, which was potentially having both boards meet each other. So I'm speaking a little bit because I didn't know Supervisor Gibson was going to be here tonight. And then potentially meeting each other and then forming a working group of potentially 2 directors from each board that would be the lead for such a study, and to get to a memorandum of understanding to even conduct a study, because somebody's going to have to pay for such. So what I'm suggesting is, because I think this has benefits for both communities and state parks, as well as for the environment, to have one processing plant, shorter term and longer term, but it's involved and so forth. So anyway, I'd like to see that potentially considered for addition to your initiatives for the year.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Lyons, yes.
Thanks, and Happy New Year to everybody. Those of you who have been in the military will understand that one of the main goals of any private is to hide when volunteers are asked for. And I know it's very hard to believe, but in those days when I was that age, I was slim enough to fit in those stand-up lockers, and I managed to get myself in there and close the door. So I'm thanking the ones of you who especially ran for the board this time, because you must have known that this volunteer effort was going to take a lot of your time, and I appreciate it. So I hope to minimize the stress level by emphasizing the cooperation and the cordiality of the public towards the board and the staff. I'm going to work real hard on that. But I must say that I disagree on quite a few of the things that were expressed by the first speaker. And I think you need to hear the other voices. Starting with number 1, I'm not so sure that hiring an outside new general manager is the best thing. I would rather you keep an open mind. It's one thing to imagine somebody who's extremely well qualified and can come here and without much of a learning curve, start right away and help the community. But it's another thing to realize you're going to have to pay a move-in cost here. You're going to have to relocate that person here, very costly. It'll be a long contract. Nobody would want to come here with a short contract. It's going to be a lot of money. It's not the person, it's the job. We established that before. That requires a lot of time and managerial effort. So it should not be out of the realm of possibility that someone from within our organization who knows the ropes, has been here through highs and lows, has really good experience, the support of the staff already who knows that person. I just would say, please keep an open mind there. That public outreach, number 1.2 and number 1.6, developing the review process for Prop 218, both highlight to me that the important words in the last year or so around here have been infrastructure and accountability and transparency. So one of the biggest jobs that I foresee here that unfortunately will take a lot of time will be to report back to the community on what you're doing and how you spent the money. There's a lot of angst here, a lot of worry that the money that was collected by Prop 218 will be spent in the wrong places. And we need, as a group, to re-emphasize that money was collected for specific accounts, and that money can't be transferred from one to another, and it really has to be spent wisely. But even more important, the people have to believe that we've done the right job, that if we're going to take their money, if we're going to tax them the way we have, we better spend it the way we promise. So that requires an awful lot of reporting back to the community at public meetings, and sometimes in writing and sometimes in a newsletter and certainly on your website. So thank you very much for your readiness and willingness to take on this gigantic number of goals. I'm with the former director saying maybe those should be narrowed down, because the especially 1.10 scares me to death. You spent the wonderful people here, I see 2 or 3 of them, who were on the Build-Out Reduction Committee, will tell you they spent 18 months working on it, and it's a very detailed report. That alone would take a lot of time on this board. So narrow the focus, and let's all succeed. Thanks.
Great, thank you, thank you. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Hi. Happy New Year to everybody. Just a thought, looking at your objectives and your goals and all that, all good stuff. One thing I would suggest that you contemplate as a board is coming up with a discussion of how you are going to be, how you're going to operate collectively. As a board, you're under a lot of crunch from a lot of different places, right? You've got things to worry about. You have a community with disparate views that will always be looking to get their voices heard, and that's all great, and it should be. That's how it should be. However, as the 5 individuals up there who have to work amongst yourselves, and then also down through the staff and the associated functions and organizations that help you, it might be good if you took some time, just as the 5 of you, perhaps, and spend some time saying, how are we going to be? How are we going to operate as a board? And that will inform, I believe, how you then interact with the rest of the organization, with the different departments, with the regulatory agencies, and most importantly, with the community. So get together as a team and then go from there. Thank you.
Great, thank you, thank you. We'll be discussing some of that in the 2B, I think it is, tonight when we start talking about committee assignments and what committees we're going to have and that kind of thing. So that will be part of 2B. Anyone else? Have any comments? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Julia Stannard, and I'm a director on the San Simeon CSD board. So I thought I would introduce myself to you all. And to follow up on Hank's comment about possibly 2 directors from my board and 2 of you, doing an exploratory meeting as to the possibilities of a regional solution to our water challenges. I don't have a background in wastewater management or engineering or anything like that, but I just want to take a step forward and see what the possibilities could be. So my fellow director, Gwen Kellis, I'm sure would want to be the second director from the San Simeon board, and whoever wants to talk to us, we're available. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I appreciate former Director Behringer's comments about too many. And so one of the things that we do want to do is we want to pare this list down maybe a little bit and maybe do some reassigning of some of these goals. First, let me get comments from my fellow directors. Don, you want to start? Have you got anything you'd like to add or pitch in here?
It is true there are many. We have a lot of things. Can you hear me? Am I not on? The green light is on. Hello?
Just get it closer, that's all.
Hello? Okay. I could swallow it, but I don't know. Can you hear me all right, everybody? Yeah. There are a lot of goals here. I don't know that it's the best choice to eliminate some, but what we certainly need to do, I think, is prioritize them.
Good.
Some are clearly more important than others. Apropos of that, I would suggest that probably, I mean, we can all agree that hiring a general manager is important, but it doesn't have to happen right away. What I think probably should happen right away, in fact, excuse me, what's happening tonight is what we need to see more of. I think public outreach is probably the single most important thing that we can look at, because what I have noted is that almost any action that this board takes, as folks have been talking to me, is subject to suspicion. Now, almost anything that we do, there's much concern about hidden agendas or about that we're not being forthcoming. There's considerable worry about what goes on in closed sessions, and I think that this board needs to address these issues and make a real concerted effort to bring as much information to the public as it is legally possible to do.
Okay, very good. So that's number one. Have you got number 2 and 3 for me too?
I'll work on that in a minute.
Okay, good. Director Farmer?
Thank you. First, I want to thank everyone that got up and spoke, and I certainly want to thank everyone that's here attending and listening, and hopefully your brain cells will be generated into maybe providing a bit more inspiration to us as time goes on. I'll be honest with you, I took a brief look, I'm talking about like this morning, I took a brief look at the agenda packet today and was kind of overwhelmed with everything that was there. And then I just sat down and wrote down what I thought would be the goals and objectives that I would wish to pursue. Goals and objectives, priorities. So I'm just going to read those. And like I say, I'm probably going to dovetail with some of what has already been said. Obviously, for hiring a new general manager. And to be perfectly honest with you, I like what Christine said. It would be really, I think, much appreciated if we could get someone in this district who came here with a sense of purpose, maybe a sense of vision as to how we as a community could move forward to be more, how could we say it, 21st century oriented. And just have part of their vision is to make this a community where people get along better, as well as dealing with the financial aspect of all the financial challenges that we have, and instilling a greater sense of pride in how the district operates and how the community relates to the district. So with that thought in mind, I'll move on to the next one. Realistically assessing staff and department and employee needs. In other words, are there areas where we need more staff? Or are there areas, departments where maybe we can operate more effectively with fewer staff? I'm not going to pinpoint any particular ones. Obviously, being as fiscally responsible as possible, including reevaluating and restructuring the priorities as to how we're spending our money. As Christine pointed out, we have spent so much money on the emergency water facility that it's taken away from the needs of water and wastewater. And so infrastructure, as I think everyone in this room knows, has been sorely neglected in recent years. So I would like to hope that we would spend more time focusing on water and wastewater infrastructure needs and improvements, and take less time and energy and monies away from the facility that isn't operating. And as many of you may be aware of, and I think it's mainly because, there's a point in here, let me see if I can find it, where it's pointed out, I think, or referenced that because of the facility, we now have a greater opportunity or more availability for water because of the facility. The fact that we have more water availability, I believe, is for two reasons. Number one, obviously, how much the members of this community have cut back on water usage, and also that Mother Nature gifted us a couple of years ago with 40 inches of rain, and we've taken advantage of that. So as a result, well levels are above average. I think I'm getting off the track here, so my apologies. But let me just say this much. I attended the recent workshop that PG&E provided with regard to the turnkey solutions that they are hoping to plug into our wastewater facility, and hopefully we'll be able to take advantage of that. And then, so just a couple of more items. Excuse me for going on so long here. Implementing standing committees for water efficiency and grant opportunities. I believe that's already in here, but that was something that I've been wishing for and speaking up for a number of months now. And this would mean also encouraging greater use of the very talented and creative members of our community, some of who are already on the standing committees for infrastructure and finance. And then finally, and I think this has already been alluded to from a variety of folks that have spoken already, developing, and I think Mike Lyons alluded to this, developing greater trust, openness, and engagement with all varied groups and interests in our town, because this is one of the main things. There's a lot of suspicion among various people in the community with regard to the district, with regard to other community members and interest groups. And if we can somehow become a more cooperative community, that's something to strive for. There's so many things that we can do in the 21st century to be a model community, as Christine said. So I'll just, like I said, I hope I didn't speak too much, but those are goals and priorities that I'd like to see addressed. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Director Seidel?
Something that we may want to take a look at that I don't know this has come up is the idea potentially of outsourcing some of the things that we do.
Okay.
I think that some of the staffing issues that we have may be able to be, pieces of it may be able to be broken off, and some of that could be outsourced if we think of it in terms of cost as a balance against PERS and the inherent cost of maintaining staff. At least it's something for consideration and may be worth at least reviewing to see if there are opportunities for that. I feel strongly, and had said so during my entire process of running for office, that I believe very strongly in policies, that we need to get to a point where we're not dealing with reactive management. We're dealing in ways that are solidifying what we do. And I think having some strong policies, if nothing else, to be able to question ourselves in terms of where we want to be and what we want to do is an extraordinarily valuable effort. And this is a very small piece of it, but an example of it would be actually, I think, the discussion and vote that we had on the truck at our last meeting. Now, the CIP itself had indicated in its review, and the number of times that it went through review, had indicated that it would be approached on the basis of going out and getting a loan to execute that, with the idea that it would free up additional cash flow for things that needed to happen. Now, it went through all those reviews, it went through the infrastructure multiple times, it went through the finance committee. It was brought to the board. I don't know how the staff would have thought that we wanted to do anything but pursue that as a loan. And I understand your hesitation in terms of not having a loan document in front of you. But in my mind, it was more a balance of where's the greater risk, the idea that we are laying out our financial resources in a chunk and potentially not being able to do something else that we need to do, versus the idea of taking a loan, maybe not having the document right in front of us, but there was little risk in terms of even being able to turn that over and pay it off if things align themselves properly. So that was just a personal evaluation for me in terms of risk. But I guess and I went home and I thought about it a lot, and I was trying to understand, okay, how do we keep that from happening in the future so that we create a smoother transition of actions that are brought to the board? So, do we need to have, some kind of final review of that? Maybe even happens in the finance committee prior to coming to the board so that it isn't a big surprise and that there, is something other than just saying, yes, go forward and do it. Or do we need to do something like tell the staff that we will only consider something if we have a loan document in front of us? And I don't know how practical that is. I'm just saying that those are, two possibilities. It just, I think we need to be smarter about how we're performing as a board. And I see a lot of opportunities for that. And I think that being honest with ourselves and looking at policies and structure and then adhering to them will keep us out of the hamster cage of reactive management. The public outreach, I think, is excellent. It's something. It's the only way that we're going to be able to establish and maintain a relationship with the community. So I think that that's an absolute. I also think that the final permitting and the operation of the SWIFT is very important. I know there are many folks who are concerned environmentally, and an element of environment, for instance, is the raising of the ocean levels. And so if we think down the line of where something may be 10 years from now, if we can get past the point of thinking of ourselves even in a 12-month period, and think of where we're going to be 10 years from now, and the idea that we would have the opportunity of having something like the SWIFT that would be able to assist in injecting into the aquifer and potentially helping to protect us against saltwater intrusion. I mean, we're not taking our ideas far enough, and I'd like to see more of that. And I think the community supports that as a whole also. I mean, if we're to look at it in terms of myself and Director Howell's results in terms of votes, my platform certainly supported the SWIFT and its operation. The platform that was published by Mr. Howell did the same thing, and if you put that together, that was a significant part of the community in terms of percentage that said that yes, they support the SWIFT and they support its operation. So I think that there's been some mandate that's set to that. And I think that what we need to do is find out how the rates start to be able to supplement us and relieve some of the pressure that we've been building towards over the last number of years because of a lack in any kind of rate change.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Dr. Rice?
Thank you, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry I have my back to you sometimes. I do tend to agree that fewer goals is a good thing, but it's also important to have that 30,000-foot view. And what I see in a lot of these goals is communication and collaboration and a sense of putting things into order that need to be in order. There's not been a lot of long-range planning going on in this district for a little while. Having been on this board for 6 years, I'm very glad we're at a point where we can have goals like this that are actually mostly achievable, which is I think a big deal. I also think it's important that we stay on the right side of our jobs, which is to establish policies for the operation of the district. And those policies include a whole lot of things about how things run. And I think Director Steidel was right on target with, once we have a structure for the policies, we're going to be doing a lot better. Because it says in the state law that allows these kind of districts to be formed, that the Board of Directors shall adopt policies for the operation of the district, including but not limited to administrative policies, fiscal policies, personnel policies, and purchasing policies. And I think that a review of our ordinances so that we're up to date with what our practices are and what the county expects for certain things is critical. Because at some point, we're going to be looking at our resources, and this is under the stewardship responsibility, I think, that we have. And we're going to have to be ready to evaluate how much water we have and whether we have capacity in the wastewater and whether we can cover the fire of additional residences and additional residents. Specifically, I'm glad that we have the fee review schedule on here. I really like that. I don't think we need anything very complicated for the 218 review process. I think that can be done in committee, but that may be a discussion for later. And we do definitely need to have, I think the idea is that was built in is to make sure that we do need it if we're going to increase it as the 218 proposed. The capital improvement project plan, whatever it's called right now, seems more like a list of to-dos and not an actual roadmap of what order things get done in. There's priorities on there, but there isn't any kind of, and that's the responsibility, I think, of the professional staff to deal with that. And I don't have any expertise in in those kinds of things, so I don't want to be sticking my nose in where I don't really, sure, there's priority levels, but we need to have a roadmap. Like, first we need to figure out how we're going to get the money if it's not going to be from rates. And the last thing, I'm very glad to hear the emergency services review. We do need to look at that again, and I know we already do have an evacuation plan. It just hasn't been communicated enough, which comes back to that whole idea that we need to communicate and collaborate, including with the possibility of a regional solution for San Simeon and Cambria to deal with the wastewater issues, and working with the county on affordable housing and the process for intent to serve letters and permitting. Those are all really critical. But communication, I think, is my top thing, including having listening sessions or something for the general manager, because that is an important thing to have. We need to settle whether it's internal or external. I mean, my mind is still wide open because we're not even on that road yet. But having a plan for what does that look like going through that process would be helpful.
Sure.
I did want to just quickly touch on, I did reach out to John Rocky at the Regional Water Board, and he's been on vacation. He won't be back till next week. But I'm hoping that we can set up a meeting with him and the person who's in charge. I think his name is Tim. I'm sorry, I don't know the name off the top of my head. To meet with them about the possibility of this project and just in a conceptual view, whether we could deal with the NPDES and the other permits that are required to get that done. Because I think I want to collaborate with the San Simeon Board and with county and whoever else is a stakeholder in the situation. But if it's not going to be able to be permitted just for technical reasons, we don't need to get into what could be a bit of a...
Agreed. Yeah.
Could be fun.
So,
I'll put it
so,
like
so
that.
checking with the powers to be before we
Yeah.
go too far.
And they may not know until we do a more detailed feasibility. And that may be the case.
Right.
But having that conversation, so I just wanted to give you that update, because I hadn't heard back from Charlie Grace, which is why I ended up reaching out.
Okay, very good. Any comments from public at this point? Oh, my. Do I get input? I'm surprised that nobody else said it, but I think still the number one issue in front of this town is the fire, okay? And so that's my number one priority, okay? I also am very big on the public outreach, which obviously all of us are. So that one is probably going to be number one goal that we have. But other than that, I think they've covered most of the stuff. But I think the emergency services, especially looking at what we can do to prevent and be ready for a possible wildfire here is critical to the community. And that's one of the reasons why I'm on the Fire Safe Focus group, and I plan to be on the ad hoc committee that interfaces with those people and stuff, because I think that's a great way. That's a terrific committee that's been formed, and if you haven't gone to one of their meetings or anything and you want to be invited, okay, just let me know. It's an excellent committee. They look at all aspects. They have experts on the committee to help out, and they get a lot done. So that would be mine. Okay. Yes.
The next Fire Safe Focus is on January 9th, right?
Yes, January 9th here at the Vets Hall at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Okay, January 9th, 3 p.m. here.
And I just want to go back to what Jim said about having too many goals. I mean, looking at the 2018 goals, we managed to get through goal 1, but we didn't really get to goal 2 or 3. Goal 2 was to evaluate the policy documents, and you do have that in there, which I very much appreciate. And the initiating the long-range and participatory strategic planning, which is also in these goals. But I just want to point out that even though those were goals not just for 2018, we tried to start that in 2017. We didn't really get very far on those because there's a lot of things that keep popping up. So when things pop up, they...
Yes. Agreed. Yes.
I agree with you in that regard, but I do think too that the subcommittees and getting that initiated and potentially looking at a policy subcommittee, I think are integral to being able to break off pieces of this thing. And there was an old adage that a boss of mine had, is that you eat the elephant a bite at a time. And we've got a herd, so yeah, we just need to break off some pieces. There is one other thing I wanted to add, if I could,
Certainly.
President Pearson, and that was the affordable housing, the taking a look at the district code.
It's on here.
Yeah, it's on there. It was
Yeah.
just that in terms of it being a priority, I think it's something,
Okay.
it's something that we get a hold of and address quickly and align ourselves with the county so that we don't end up being a stumbling block for something that I think is inherently important also to the community.
Sure. Absolutely.
In that vein, I'd also like to look and see what, if anything, we can do regarding vacation rentals, because I know people that have them and want to get a permit from the county have to come to us to get a letter. And I'm not talking about, doing something that would necessarily stop them, but if there's any step in their intermediate step, that at least looking at the ones we know we have and seeing if their water use is significantly different, and maybe looking at whether they should be declared as commercial rather than residential, and what that would mean financially, if that would be positive or not. I know that affordable housing, one of the reasons why it's hard to find a rental here is because there's so many short-term rentals, because it's so easy these days to get that.
And
And
Director
one way to-
Howell, I wanted to speak to. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, if you want to follow up.
One way to potentially leverage that could be able to define some of that for coordination with the NCAC. So when the minor use permits would come through for that, we could help feed criteria to the committee usage within NCAC to codify that a little bit.
Great, back to collaboration, which is important.
Good. Director Al.
Oh, okay. Number 2 on my list is I think these goals are actually different levels of specificity. So a rather broad goal, which kind of covers a lot, is the 1.3, advancing the district's strategic planning efforts. So, and that's kind of where we're involved with.
Right.
So that's something.
Agreed.
It's kind of an overarching thing. The other thing, though, as I was thinking, it hasn't been mentioned very much, the build-out reduction program. Now, in one sense, it's not as important as the fire safety in terms of what needs to be done right now. But what I do see, having reviewed the report, is that to implement that program, even as it presently is proposed in the report, is a rather lengthy process. And in order for us to move forward in certain areas, among which is when and how the emergency water supply will be used, in my opinion, it's very dependent upon the build-out reduction plan being implemented. And I suspect that it will take more than a year to actually get that thing moving. So I think that it's important in the sense that it needs to get started. I don't know that we will be able to finish it this year, but I do firmly believe it needs to be agendized and discussed, and this board needs to adopt something about that.
Sure.
And so it needs to be done. We need to start
Well,
it.
then just accept it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, my opinion, all right, is that we really need to get the CDP before we look at the build-out reduction program again. And the reason I say that is because, one, it is part of the EIR, okay? And two, then we will know what the county is going to restrict us on use, or if they're going to, and what even the Coastal Commission has to say about the build-out reduction plan, and whether that's, is it feasible and how to go about it. Okay, we may get some insight from either the county or the Coastal Commission, but if you want to try to move it forward sooner, that's fine.
Just from being around longer than before the SWF was built, when it was EWS and before then, the build-out reduction program being part of the EIR, it may be that we do have to get on top of that before we get our CDP from the Coastal Commission. They may condition the CDP on getting going on that. And it's actually 1.10 should probably be a sub-goal under 1.4, because I think it's, and I may be wrong about that, but that was my understanding from talking to people that were working, talking to Dean, talking to people on Coastal, and at the meetings with the county. I think that's, if we don't have something that says this is going to be a concrete plan, we're going to go forward, then it's not a mitigation.
It was supposed to be mitigation.
Right, it's a mitigation, and so if it's not going to be feasible, then it's not a mitigation, we got to figure out something else.
Right, okay. Yeah, I would agree that it should be part of 1.4, unless somebody has an objection. I made that note up there. Vice President Farmer, I thought I had your light on, but are you good?
Well, since you called on me and I didn't have my light on, I will go ahead and say something anyway. I'm sitting here thinking about the statement, I'll paraphrase Albert Einstein, that you can't solve a problem if you're using the same mindset that helped create the problem in the first place. And I think about affordable housing, the lack of housing and affordable housing in this community. And this isn't a problem just to our community. It exists all over the state of California. It exists in communities and large cities all over this country. And the unfortunate situation is that this problem exists because people's priority has become their short-term material self-interest. So instead of having more affordable long-term rentals in this community, we now have more vacation rentals. So people that don't even live here are able to generate more income for themselves without considering the effect that they're having upon this community. Employees that live here, you can ask a number of businesses in this community. There's a shortage of employees because many people have moved out of town. Some are being actually bussed in from areas where they have moved to. But the bottom line is that we, just like so many other areas, have a dilemma because of, and I know this doesn't sound like a very comfortable thing to say, but greed is something that is overwhelming, our society, and short-term self-interest. I don't know how to resolve this problem, but and how we affect other people's moral compass to where they say they reevaluate how they're using their property here for their own benefit as opposed to not being a benefit to our town. I'm just pointing this out. How it gets resolved, I have no idea. And I realize there's an issue in our nation with regard to property rights, but the overall well-being of a community and a nation should take priority over short-term self-interest, especially when it affects so many members of a community, where people are being paid less and less to try and survive. So that's. Thank you for calling on me, David. Thank you, President Pearson.
All right. Any input from staff at this point? I know. Monique, anything? Oh. It's okay. Tony's going to bail me out.
I wasn't going to speak, but first of all, Happy New Year. And the first thing I want to say is I'm so glad that you've got the standing committees and that you're taking it all very seriously. It's taken a long time to get there, and I think you're going to make incredible progress. One of my pet peeves, and it really is my pet peeve, but because you mentioned it, David, is the fire issue. I am so frustrated with the fact that it went before the grand jury, and even now we're basically about 2/3 through dealing with the fire hydrants. At the pace you're going, by the time you finish, you'll have to start again, and you still haven't flushed them. And heaven help anybody whose house goes up and their hydrant doesn't work. The other thing which is I find very frustrating, and you can't do anything about it, is the Brown Act. People are totally in the dark about what happened with our last general manager. We're in the dark about what is happening with CDM Smith and the litigation. And I know the Brown Act has got your hands tied, but it is being open to the public. I think you'll find a lot of the people in this town are very frustrated with that. Finally, action is being taken on vacation rentals. It is ridiculous that people are having to be bussed into town to get jobs. And there are so many empty properties around here. It's unbelievable how many properties are standing vacant. Not just being, bed and breakfast, but also houses that are just have been basically an investment for a lot of people. Anyway, thank you for listening.
Very good input. Thank you. I'm glad you got up. All right, anyone else? Mr. Lyons,
Have I used up all my time?
you need to be quick. If you can be quick.
Yeah.
What would you like to say?
Well, I want to specifically address item 1.4, which I didn't in my unfortunately too long monologue before. Normally, a board like this represents the various views of all of the community. And we all know too well, having had so many difficult meetings here about the SWF, EWS, whatever you want to call it, that there is a difference in the attitude of many people here. But we have something coming at us like a freight train, and we have to be ready for it. And that is the SEIR, which we have pushed into the county and is going to come out of the county probably this year. To me, rather than a board reflecting the various views in the community, we really need to get unity on the board. The last thing I want is to have someone from this board or the CCSD answering the questions of the Planning Commission or the Board of Directors with any kind of nuances. We need concrete answers. We need to settle this issue about whether we're going forward with the SWF. I've heard some rumblings tonight about how much damage it's done, that it's not working, that maybe we shouldn't keep it. I remind everyone here that for about 20 years, we spent a lot of money and had a lot of studies about whether we should do something about supplemental water. In 2014, this board unanimously voted for it, and it was built within 6 months. Shortly after that, the first Prop 218 rate increase was voted on. That was another, what I would consider, referendum. In 2016 election, we had the general direction of the board was towards continuing work on the SWF. We just had 3 issues in Prop 318 pass, allowing new money to come into all 3 of those funds. To me, that's a vote for the SWF because the SWF is one of those. And we just had the 2 members installed here from the recent election, both of which are committed to getting that permanent licensing. Now, I, for one, am obviously in favor of having a supplemental water supply, if nothing else, for fire. But I understand that a lot of people here in town think differently. I wouldn't mind if the community had a referendum on the ballot. If we have to settle this once and for all, if we're going to continue hearing that the community has never voted for it or against it, we've never had a chance, I'm ready to cut to the chase. And I promise you that if the community votes against the SWF, I'll stand back and I'll never say another word about it. But I would ask my colleagues and my neighbors that if the community votes for it, we have to get behind it. Because we've developed it, we've voted for it in a way, we've paid for it. We have a lot of effort going. And I want someone from this board to go in front of the county and later on what will surely happen in the Coastal Commission and represent the majority of the citizens here. And we can't be wishy-washy about it. We have to be very solid in our opinion. So be prepared for something to happen in 2019.
Great, thank you. My opinion is that we've taken over 4 years to get this CDP, and we still aren't there. And one of the reasons why I think it's very important is we need to get it done. And we need to get the county to tell us either approve it and let us go, and get the Coastal Commission to do the same thing. And let's get it done. Let's have the thing ready to go and be done with it. Then we can move on to a lot of other more important things that we've got up here. We're going to do other important things also, but we need to just move forward and get the county to do their job, get the Coastal Commission to do their job, and then be done with it. All right.
Do you want to debate this right now?
No. No.
There's so much more to it than just dismissing it and saying, oh, we're just going to get them to rubber stamp this and it's going to be fine, without talking about the money, the environmental environmental, I mean, it just came up, you know, the build-out protection plan, because of mitigation, the environmental damage, the debt, blah, blah, blah. I mean, to just say, oh, well, we're just gonna get behind it, and it's gonna be great, and like I said, well, it's for fire. It's not for fire.
Well,
You can't fire hose to fight fire.
understood. And yes, we've heard over the years a lot of your opinions, okay? And we take them all into consideration, absolutely. I think the county is asking us for a lot of this kind of information. They are requesting more information on ESHA. They're requesting more information on a lot of things that are exactly what you're talking about. And the Coastal Commission, I'm sure, is going to be doing the same thing. What is your mitigation plan? What are you going to do? When are you going to run it? All those things are going to come up through the county and through the Coastal Commission process. And we're going to answer those questions as they come up and do what we need to do in order to satisfy those two groups. And I think if we satisfy those two groups, I think then we've got a situation where we've, committed ourselves to a loan. We've taken a grant from the state to get this thing done. And so I think that's the point where, based upon them being the regulatory agencies, we need to then go forward and with whatever recommendations and whatever they put on us, restrictions they put on us at that point. Okay? And no, I don't want to debate it anymore. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make something really clear. Supervisor Gibson made sure that we were set up with somebody in the planning department to work with them, and they are all the things that are being requested from the county mostly is coming from their coordination with the Coastal Commission, so that once we're through the process here, there's fewer or almost nothing left that will be required by Coastal. So in a way, it's been a cooperative effort from the get-go, and I think that Director Sanders and Director Robinette, when they were on the board and on the committee that was working with them, and through the meetings that I attended with the county planning department, I mean, we have set up a monthly meeting that are on hiatus at the moment because we're waiting for the Section 7 and some of the ESHA stuff, so there's nothing to discuss at the moment. But I think those will resume the moment that we have given them.
Right.
But it's not just the county that's asking for all this stuff. The county is trying to prepare us for the hearing with Coastal because they know there probably will be one. And so I just want to give kudos to Erlen Singewald, to Supervisor Gibson for setting those things up and getting us kind of situated. And there are a lot of details. It's much more nuanced for sure. But this is a big group effort that we're all trying to make sure that what we get is the least amount of length in hearing when we get to Coastal.
Right, absolutely. Again, staff, any input?
President Pearson, just a few observations, if I might.
Sure.
I took a lot of notes. My name's Pavel Ogren, and first off, I want to make sure to appreciate the board for allowing me, at least for an interim period, to work with the district and the community. And so I don't want to get into the volume of the notes that I've taken on the different issues, but I wanted to make sure everybody knew I was taking notes and listening to everybody carefully. A couple of the observations, though, is one statement that I heard an individual make is the importance of the relationship between the board, the staff, and the community. And I really appreciate that public comment because when it comes down to community-based decision-making, there are certain decisions that the community will be making. There are other decisions that the board will be making, And then, of course, in day-to-day operations, there are decisions that the acting general manager or different individuals and staff need to make. And so when we're working through our different goals and priorities and trying to accomplish objectives of the district, I think it's really important to be able to be focused on what are the decisions that the community is going to make, what are the decisions that the board is going to make, and what are the decisions that staff is going to make. And altogether, those are a part of a healthy community-based decision-making model. There's also comments, or a few comments, regarding one goal versus many. And so as the individual who did the first rough draft of these goals, and then we worked with staff and the acting general manager, of course, in order to refine them and produce the agenda package. But we conscientiously made sure that we put the big draft stamp on it because we wanted to promote dialogue with the board and promote dialogue with the community. And I think that basic objective has certainly been met. I hear a lot of good comments, even when individuals have different positions on various issues. And obviously, some of those discussions are going to follow through as the year goes by. And so this issue about one goal versus many, and the board discussion about having a policy committee, and also how is that strategic plan going to be developed as time goes by. I think it might be the possibility then that through that policy committee and if the policy committee is discussing how to develop a strategic plan, that some of that prioritization can be done in more detail within the policy committee coming back to the board as a whole. Because certainly some comments have already been made that certain goals have to be addressed before other goals can be addressed. And, the hot topic seems to be this relationship between the sustainable water facilities and this build-out reduction program, which I'm probably the most fortunate person in the room today because I know least about that type of controversy in the community. But it doesn't take, a lot of listening skills to know that it's a hot topic in the community. And so some goals have to be addressed first and other goals addressed subsequently. And then some goals are brought together and addressed together. And my thought was, in the course of a discussion tonight, the ability to go through all of those details is going to be limited by time and not enough coffee and everything else like that. But the board's discussion about a policy committee, I think, is really the opportune time to really start ferreting through some of those details. The one item that really jumped out at me that we did not in our brainstorming come up with was the energy reduction program or the reduction in greenhouse gases. I thought that was a really good input. We are addressing that. Staff has recently met with PG&E because there's incentive programs from PG&E in order to, do a variety of things. Replacing old pumps with new pumps that are more energy efficient. There's grant programs out there. So even though we didn't specifically remember to include that topic as one of the goals, it is one of the efforts that we're working on, and that might be an issue then that's a goal of the infrastructure committee, because we also recognize that there's a certain level of details that we didn't get into in this draft document that really are appropriate for whether it's the finance committee or the infrastructure committee to develop as goals within those committees. So those were sort of the three overarching comments that I wanted to make, and I appreciate the opportunity for comment.
Okay, great. Anyone else at this point? All right, what I'd like to do now is kind of look at the list and try to say, okay, which ones should the board as a whole take on, and which ones do we assign to different committees, whether they be standing or ad hoc. And I'll just start with the hiring of the GM. We already have a search ad hoc committee that consists of myself and Director Rice, and I think we'll continue to do that and keeping the board informed, of course. And one of our things that we will certainly do is at some point in time in the very near future have a listening session with the full board present. I don't know if we'll do that in the January meeting, but certainly we will do that in the February meeting so that there will be input from the community as how, maybe the traits that we're looking for or how we should go about interviewing and that kind of thing. So we will have that done, okay? So am I okay putting that as keeping that with that ad hoc committee? Okay. Public outreach, personally, I think that's a full board responsibility and a full board, and I will say that our strategic and organizational consultant has done a great job of giving us lots of new ideas as to how to go about reaching out and doing more there. And I think we can get some good input as far as how to do that better and discuss that more openly as a full board, if everybody is all right with that being. And since everybody thought that was a big one, that's probably our number one goal at this time for the full board.
I think it kind of overarches almost everything that we do, though, in a way.
Right.
So measuring that, one possible way we could get some more outreach is, I know Director Farmers had a lot of people at his talks. Maybe one of the things that we could do is if there are 2 directors each month that are here a little bit before the meeting. So if people want to come and talk to them about something that's on the agenda, and if there's only 2 or 1, it would give an opportunity for people to have more than necessarily 3 minutes, as long as there's not, 25 people. But it just having even 15 or 20 minutes ahead of the meeting to talk to a director or 2 might. And I don't know if I would have time to do it, but I'm going to make the suggestion anyway, because I think it's something that we could
Sure.
look at doing.
Sure.
Put a sign or a banner out in front of the Vets Hall the day of a meeting, and I don't ever see a sign. And I think that if you put a sign, especially on the corner there and in front of the building, that there's a meeting, that people will know. Yes.
I like that. Can we have an action item for the acting general manager on that? Yes,
We
sir.
can try.
Just an observation. I think that public outreach is sort of a binaural activity, right? In my experience, if I have a question or a concern, I've reached out to the board collectively and individually, and I've had very little difficulty having that dialogue. And with the information and feedback I get, I can share it with Dixie, I can share it with Mike, I can share it with Tony, with anybody who's interested in that. And I think that's very helpful. So as we think about communication, it's not a one-way street. It's not, what are you going to do for me? It's, how am I going to help you do your job better? How am I going to help you get more reasonable input from the community in a way that doesn't, of course, bog you down in answering emails all day long? But think about that as a community. How do we come collectively to you or individually to you to get that information out there, and then how do we share that amongst ourselves?
Great, very good input. Yes, he did send us a lengthy one on our decision. Well, my answer was lengthy. So the public outreach one, we're going to leave at the broad. Sure, sure. Yeah. And well, I think there are different ways that we can do that, okay? That's one, certainly, but, the standing committees reporting, the ad hoc committees, how do they get their information out to those kind of things? Strategic planning effort, I think Mr. Ogren said that would be a good one for the policy committee to start with. So we'll put that down there. Number 4, complete the regular permitting and other actions relating to the sustainable water facility. That to me would be an ad hoc committee, unless I have people on the board that would like to do something different than that. Anyone?
I have a
Director?
question.
Yes.
On your sub-item 3 there, consider options that may be available from existing Water Resource Development Act, authorization approved. Could you expand on that? I didn't understand that point. On the action items?
There's a grant that we've applied for, okay? I think that's what they're talking about.
Oh, okay.
Okay? And looking into that grant opportunity and what we could do with that money if we got it, that kind
Got
of
it.
thing.
Yeah.
Finalize the multi-year infrastructure well, that's obviously the infrastructure committee. Right? Vice Chairman Dean is shaking her head, yes. Develop the annual Prop 218 rate review process. I really thought that we covered this in the budget policy, but I'm not positive, so if anything, that goes back to finance as a goal. Review the district code policies. This is a policy committee. Review the district fee schedule and consider whether directions should be provided to make amendments. Maybe the finance committee, because that's really about money. I think that makes sense there. Emergency services. I think that as an ad hoc, again, working with the Fire Safe Council that we've already got established to move that forward. And if we find that we can't get enough done there, then we bring that back to the board and say, we need a standing committee and we need to focus on this a lot more than we currently are. Okay? Yes.
Does that need to be an ad hoc committee, or could that be a liaison that brings the CCSD interest to?
I'd like to have two people.
Okay, I don't have any problem.
Instead of one.
That's why I was asking.
Yeah, I really would like to have two.
No worries.
Am I going too fast? No? I'm okay? Build-out reduction program, we decided was a sub of 1.4. Okay, so that's on that one. Committee and liaison goals.
That was going to be an ad hoc?
Yes. Because we're in heated disagreement here, or unheated disagreement about whether we should be working on that first, second, or in the middle. And I am wide open to when we start looking at that, because it is very complex. People spent a lot of time formulating that and looking into all the different options. And if you haven't read it, it's a very good document, but it's going to be a difficult document to implement. Committee and liaison goals, I think we're talking about that right now. I think what the idea is that the board will kind of assign some of the goals. The committees will then meet and will come up with goals that they want to achieve and bring those back to the board and basically have a concurrence that the standing committees and ad hoc committees are headed down the right path, okay? I think that's basically the way we want to go ahead and try to do that. Environment and energy water conservation. It was recommended that that be kind of under the infrastructure committee. Is that the right place for that, everybody?
I mean, there are pieces of it that could, I mean, if you're talking about the idea of, there are pieces of it that probably could be under the infrastructure committee, but that could probably stretch out across a couple of different things. It's the idea of the vehicles, or there are things in terms of reducing carbon footprint in the manner in which the maintenance vehicles are used. I mean, it fits into infrastructure, but I don't know if it's encompassed by it.
Yeah, I would agree.
Stewardship is kind of something that the whole board will be needing to look at as a whole, I think. I mean, all of the committees that are going to help support the actions of the board and support what the board is trying to get done are going to bring it to the board. They're not making the decisions and then that's it. I mean, they're going to kind of work out some of the more details that need to be discussed more at length, I think, and having something that looks at, yeah, that's kind of a hard one. I mean, setting that as, I think it's an important goal to have stewardship at the core of our mission, I think is important, because that goes to how do we use the water, how do we use the rates people give us, so it's kind of an overall that has not been a very high priority of the board in the past, and I think we can make that a priority without it having it be a goal. Does that make sense?
No, if we're going to
No?
do it, we need to do it.
Well, I just don't even know what actions we would be able to take and how that would be. I guess I just don't, I can't imagine.
Well, perhaps I can make a suggestion. I think it does reach over many things, but I do think that infrastructure is probably a good place to start. It doesn't mean that that's going to be all, but it is a good place to. It's good to pick things that you can actually deal with, and like discussing fuel use and things of that nature. It's a good way to begin. Can I President Dave, can I go off topic for just a moment?
Sure.
I've noticed folks are starting to leave, and so I wanted to. We're talking. This is apropos of the public outreach. First of all, it's wonderful to see everyone here. I was afraid that we would be giving a party and no one would show up. So it's incumbent upon us to be as open as possible. It is a responsibility of the public to come or to pay attention and to these issues and participate. And so I'm just incredibly grateful that you're all here. Apropos of that whole thing and some discussions I've had with others, one thing that had been mentioned to me, I think it was today anyway, some folks feel frustrated when they come here and they feel that they speak to us, but they're not being listened to or they're not being heard. And so I think we need to make an effort somehow to where we may not necessarily agree with what people say, but that we do in some way acknowledge what they have said. And so may I propose a little additional work for staff? At least this is only a proposal. I think it would really help a lot if in the minutes there was very brief summaries of what the public was saying. Each person, that's right now we just say that there was public comment and there were these people, but that to put it in writing and so it's readable by everybody, that person X came to the podium and said something. I think that would really help a lot.
It's very difficult for them to do that.
I know it is.
Because
excuse me.
The suggestion is to do exactly what Ms. Hendricks does, okay? Which is she writes it out. And if she will give us that, we will make it part of the minutes, okay? And I think that's for everybody should do that, okay? Then we know exactly what they wanted to say and how they wanted to say it. Whereas if we're trying to paraphrase it or summarize it, because what Christine did was terrific, okay? Yeah. But trying to get Haley to paraphrase that in a paragraph would be impossible.
Oh, yes.
So what I'd really like to do is suggest that when they want to make a comment that they want to be part of the record, that they just write it down. Their summary, they can talk longer than that, but they can hand in a summary of what they would like as part of the recorded minutes.
That's an interesting idea, yeah.
Something like that
might go, yeah.
And I'm not taking credit for that. Mr. Ogren, again, was the man that came up with that.
Good idea.
Okay.
On that topic?
Yes.
Just really quickly, when I became the chair of NCAC, I became the keeper of the box of minutes from history and being a buff and into history. I was reading through them, and they used to do that where they would put people's comments and paraphrase them. And looking through the history, honestly, it wasn't as helpful as I would have thought. Partially because during public comment, a lot of times questions aren't answered until the next meeting, and a lot of times the response to it is nothing from the body itself. I mean, that's just one anecdote, so it's not. But we also have the videos.
Right, we also have the videos. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
But all of us are, in some degree, environmentalists, or we wouldn't be living here because we love it so much. And I would like to commend Cindy on addressing that issue. One of the things that you might consider is to have something like an environmental oversight committee. It is global with regard to everything going on, and those people would be informed and have the ability to express concerns, should there be any, to that committee. Just a thought.
Excellent. Okay, I think that's good feedback. Very good feedback. But for now, I'm getting the sense from the board that that's infrastructure for now. Yes? Yes? Okay. And so the infrastructure committee is a standing committee, okay, so that if there's environmental issues and stuff, they should be brought to the infrastructure committee, and they can either act on them and take them up for discussion and action, or they can forward them to the board if it doesn't fit within their purview.
Or to the fire ad hoc committee, maybe, because there's probably environmental issues related to tree trimming and clearing and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. The regional wastewater treatment plant, I think we hold that for now until we find out if we're going to, or should we form an ad hoc committee now to meet with San Simeon?
Well, when we get to item 2B, I think maybe we look at whether that's something to do, but I think we don't want it to drop off the radar.
Okay.
But until we talk to John Rocky and the other person, just conceptually, it's an unknown. So.
I would agree. I just as soon not see that drop off because in terms of evolution, it's something that will have a long maturing process to it. And the idea of just getting smart along the way, I think, is invaluable and would help kickstart something if that was the approach that was used.
So possible ad hoc, right?
Yeah.
Separate?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can always dissolve it if we don't need it.
Okay, so the board as a whole really only came up with one goal out of all this. Everything else is going to be assigned. So what I would like to do is I would like to take Director Behringer's suggestion on mission and make that the number 2 goal of the board is to review and come up with a new mission statement, vision, whatever we're going to do, and go ahead and get that done so that then we can hand that to the policy committee and they can focus their strategic priorities and planning on the mission. Which means we'll probably have to have another one of these town hall meetings to do that. Yes. All right. We're going to take a break until 15 minutes after on the clock on that wall over there. And then we will reconvene and take up number 2B, which is committee assignments and how many committees we're going to have and that kind of thing. Thank you.
right here, and it is a forum, come talk about whatever it is. Bruce will be here, as will Trevor Keith, the new planning and building director, will be here to listen to people. Sorry.
She doesn't want to get shot.
So just let everybody know, and flyers will be all around town, and there will be on the paper, but I'm not taking these flyers away. I can see.
All right, for those of you at home who didn't hear that, the NCAC will have a forum on vacation rentals here at the Vets Hall at 5:30 on January 16th. Again, a forum, open forum for all to come to who are interested in talking about vacation rentals one way or the other. Thank you. All right. Now, I apologize to everybody. We had to set up the room this way for two reasons. One was we wanted to be able to put things up on the wall so everybody could see them and what we were talking about. And number two was we had to have this impediment here because it's the only way that we can do the TV. So we are now probably going to remain in our seats, so if you all want to move your chairs so that you're more comfortable looking at us, or I can help you out moving the chair over or whatever, and you know, feel free to make yourselves more comfortable. Yeah, back over there. In fact, you don't even have to move your chair if you just want to grab one of the chairs from there. I think the TV people would rather you didn't sit in front of the cameras, but behind them are okay. If you just want to swivel in your chair, that's fine too. No problem. And again, I apologize for this, but it was the only way that we could really get this done and have it make any sense.
Plus, you got to try new things to see if they work and find ways to make them work.
And I'm not satisfied with this. So if anybody has a better idea how to get this done, let me know.
Good.
We're reconvened, and I'll go ahead and introduce item number 2B, which is a discussion. Discussion and consideration regarding standing and ad hoc committee and liaison assignments. And hopefully we can get all the assignments done and et cetera before we are finished. I'd like to get finished by 8:30 tonight so everybody can get home. All right. First order of discussion will be standing committees. How many do we need? What are they? And who's going to be on those standing committees? So discussion, open for discussion on that. Anyone? Yes.
Should we have the discussion first about what kind of identity these are going to have? Because there have been a lot of conversations about whether directors would still be on the standing committees, if it'd be one director, two director, 4 potato, 5 that would participate, and whether there would be an intent to expand the committees to allow for more small group information.
Sure, absolutely. Discussion on the standing committee. Let's just talk about standing committees for now. What they should look like and how many people, etc. And there's a member of the public that would like to comment. Mr. Behringer?
Hello, I just was talking to staff a little bit, and it seems like a standing committee that works extremely well is the Pros Commission. Pros Commission they come together every year, they elect a new president, they have a vice president, they have a secretary. Staff doesn't even have to be there a lot of times. And they make recommendations to the board when they come up with something. So that's a kind of a model that works pretty well, I think. People that come there can speak. A director being there does not intimidate the speakers. The director isn't somebody that it was a liaison in a way. So it kind of worked very well. And what I see in the infrastructure committee, my experience, and attending the finance committee, it seems like if there's a director or two there that are going to be getting advice from the board members, if the board members are a little bit intimidated in a way. So my personal opinion would be that the members of the committee are citizens that are appointed by the board, and the board can attend, but board members maybe interject something or listen, but the committee members themselves are going to come up with a solution and provide an answer. That's just my suggestion. You can do as you wish, of course, and if you keep the eye on the mission and you focus on achievements and you measure it, then a standing committee could maybe take a month off or whatever, if that's the case. And the one other thing about committee assignments, when we get to liaison assignments, I think if you look at the mission, liaisons maybe for emergency services makes great sense, or an ad hoc committee. Actually, I take that, your point there, David, is extremely good. But to have people, a liaison for a Coast Union district or the healthcare district, they've had their elections. They can operate on their own. And if you want to focus, and then sometimes if you get a chance to focus on something, to have that as a diversion, it wouldn't be too excellent. And then what I'll do is watch the rest of this on TV, if you take my leave.
Great. Thank you. So I need some direction, and I'm not sure that we have it. The difference between a standing committee and a commission, because we have a pros commission and others are standing committees. Is there anyone who has a definition of the difference between the two amongst the staff? I certainly don't. Director Rice, based on your...
So I was looking at the 1994 Parks Master Plan for the district, and the Pros Commission was created by the board in 1992 as a result of a survey that was put out about what the community wanted to see in parks, and so I don't think it was based on the recommendations of an advisory committee. So I think it was intended to be. And I don't think at that time they had standing committees either. So I think maybe that's why it's also there's nobody from the board on it. Like the planning commission at the county, there's no board members from the board of supervisors on that commission. I think a commission has a specific, but maybe acting general manager Madrid has some additional thoughts on that.
I can help you identify the differences, but I'm not sure what the legal difference is, but we can find out. So the Pros Committee has bylaws. They have an appointment process that's approved by the board. It goes to the committee first, or the commission first, and then it goes to the board. So, and they have terms. I believe they register as 700 club members, 700 club members. No, they register for the conflict of interest. So those would be the main differences between them and the standing committees that I see off the top.
Yes, Mr. Ogren.
President Pearson, in my experience, often a commission may have certain real powers. So like the County Planning Commission has real powers even if they're subject to appeal to the Board of Supervisors. But I'm not sure that there's hard and fast rules of distinction. I think the other important thing is just making sure that whether it's a committee or a commission, that we're consulting with legal counsel to determine whether it has Brown Act compliance requirements.
Right, okay. Very
They
good.
do also have a budget, sorry. They have a budget.
They have a budget. Ooh.
Standing committees are getting more popular.
That's a dangerous thing, yeah. Okay.
So I have a suggestion on the structure of the committees. I think that it's good to have a board member or two present at the meetings. There's a lot to be said for keeping the committee on track or on task, depending on what's happening. One of the things that Los Osos does really well is committees. And their committees are made up of individuals from the community who volunteer, just like how ours are. And they have a board member chair the meeting. So the board member helps set the agenda and chairs the meeting, but isn't a voting member of the committee. Because being a voting member of the committee, you then are transmitting your position on something the board is going to be considering. So preventing that particular potential conflict would be an advantage, multiple advantages of having a board member be the chair of the committee, but then not be a voting member unless it's required to break a tie, which would only happen, I think, if there was somebody that was not there. Because if you have five members that are voting and the chair, most of the time you're not going to have a tie vote because you've got 5 volunteer members plus the director.
Oh, okay. So you're saying 6 people total?
6 people total, but only 5 voting members.
Okay. So, Director Howe?
I would like to concur with Director Rice's proposal. I think it's a very good idea. Having a board member at the committee and conducting the meeting helps to keep the committee on track. But I do believe it's basically standard Robert's rules. Chairman of a meeting normally does not make motions and does not vote unless there's a tie. So I think this would be a very good way to keep things moving forward, but without having the presence of a board member be, what's the word I want to, intimidating the rest of not that that's been going on, but there may be a reticence, And I think the other thing is well taken. If the board member is a voting member, then that's kind of added a little voice there that probably shouldn't be there, because it is, after all, as I've said, it's the committee's job to present something to the board. Well, so we don't really need the board inputting into that until it comes to them. So I would concur with that. And I do think 5 members with the 6th person being the chair is a good idea, in that it does allow us, if we wish to do that, to have each person on the board here nominate or recommend a member. That way, if anyone's particular point of view that they may need to be represented. This board is fairly unified, but there will be times when there are disagreements, and so each of us should have an opportunity to have, I hate to say this, it sounds awful, people on our side on the one or another of those committees.
Right.
But I don't mean to imply that we're at that level of contention. But anyway, so I would concur with that.
Yes.
The one thing that is a potential issue or difficulty under certain circumstances with having a director be part of the committee is that it puts the director in a position of providing direction to staff directly, rather than through the GM necessarily. I mean, we've seen that happen in meetings before, and if we want to try to develop a better skill set for ourselves of being a board that remains outside the execution of staff activities, it's just something to consider. By being more aware of it, we would probably be fine, but I'm just mentioning it as a potential drawback.
Yeah, I would concur with that, Director Rice.
And, well, there's also, how do you then set up the agendas for the committees? Does the agenda come from the board directly? So that each month the board has to consider what is going to be on the agenda of the finance committee? Or do you have the finance committee chair work with staff, whatever appropriate staff, or on whatever the items that the board has said that we need the committees to look at budget right now, or we want the policy committee to, right now the policy committee is going to do X, Y, Z, or the infrastructure committee is going to do this. I mean, how do those agendas get put together if not with somebody from the board?
Yeah, good point too. Vice President Farmer?
Sorry, sir, your mic isn't working. Could you borrow the next one? Thank you. My mic isn't, okay, thank you. So it seems like the main issue here is the function of the board member that's on the committee, or if there is one. It would seem to me that a board member should be present, and I understand the intimidation factor, but I'd like to think that because of having more community involvement as a result of only having one board member and therefore 5 community members, that actually I think it would run more efficiently and perhaps even more cooperatively. I mean, I haven't seen any problems with having board members so far on the standing committees. If we're just going to have one board member instead of 2, so far my feeling in having attended pretty much all of the standing committee meetings is that everyone is basically very comfortable with who is on the committee, whether it's a board member or not. So in that sense, I don't see it as a problem. And if the board member is a non-voting member, then that's fine. If it sounds like Director Rice says that that's the way it's done in Los Osos, and it seems to be a very efficient way of operating, then that sounds like a great idea.
Okay, good. I would agree that that's not a bad composition. I mean, we're still, even though we've had standing committees for about 9 months now, we're still feeling our way as far as how they go and all that kind of stuff. I would agree that the standing committees probably didn't accomplish as much as they might have. I think the finance committee did accomplish some policies, got through the committee, and we did ask a lot of questions on budget, audit, and et cetera, and that finance committee has got a lot of work to do over the next 6 months. So I'm good with that composition, and I also think that one member recommended, okay, instead of appointed, maybe recommended by each one of us for each committee would be a fine way to go. And I'd also ask that, we go ahead and put out on the website a request for people that want to be on committees to go ahead and send in just a statement of interest or qualifications or something like that, so that board members will have a pool of people to choose from, and if they don't know someone immediately that would be good on the policy committee, that would be a pool that they could go to and find somebody. So are we basically in agreement, or?
Well, maybe our organizational strategic advisor has a thought.
I do have a thought. First off, I thought that in listening to the board, the discussion of the pros and cons associated with a board member on the committees was good. I do think that the overriding consideration is important for staff, that a board member is on the committee and helps to set the agenda to ensure that the agenda is consistent with the board's overall goals and with the understanding of the workload and the other issues that staff has to provide. We talked about it on the prior agenda item, the importance of the board really having a leadership role with, coordinating the efforts of staff, your board, and the community. So the comments that were made regarding working with staff to set the agenda, I think is really the overriding consideration. And I was glad to hear that that's the direction that the board is inclined to take.
Yes.
I think additionally, the board member on the committees can also help make sure that we're staying on course for the board, for the Brown Act compliance, as well as, can I ask a question about the committee application or interest by the community members? Do we have a list of the committees that you're looking to fill?
Well, we will by the end of the day,
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
I hope. Standing committees, so we're in agreement. Do we need a resolution on that? I don't think we need a resolution.
Question.
We can do one of,
Question?
yes.
Good. The way that the proposed committees were listed here, the Standing Finance Committee had ad hoc Tyler Encode and ad hoc audit underneath it. Is that to infer that those ad hocs are drawn from the Standing Finance?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to do it that way.
Okay.
But
Because if that were the case, I think that then that standing committee needed to be a little more robust, because there's a lot of dense
yeah.
action sitting there.
I think we're going to have separate ad hocs for those issues.
Okay.
Okay. I think discussion to follow, but this can be a board order, or
Yeah, certainly.
okay. Concurrent. We have general concurrence, and that's all we need then. Okay.
I just want to be clear. So a standing committee would have 5 members plus a board member, and the 5 members are made up of people who can apply, but each one of us will appoint a member to that committee.
We'll recommend to the board.
We'll recommend to the board.
And
Okay.
then we will approve.
And then as a
those
whole,
people.
we'll approve those people. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I
Yeah.
understood.
And the other rule or whatever is that the director will be the chairperson and will not vote. Will be a non-voting ex officio.
Thank
Okay.
you.
You can do it by minute action if you want. If you want to do it as action by the board
Yeah.
and record it in the minutes.
Yes. So do I have to do anything additionally?
You can make the motion
Oh.
and do it as a formal motion, or you
I'm
can
not
do it by
supposed to. I'm not
consensus.
supposed to do a motion, but,
Second.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Carries 5-0.
Do you want to take public comment on it?
Yes. I think we're good. Even Mr. Beringer says we're okay. We didn't fully take his suggestion, but I think we made a compromise there. Mr. Lyons?
Speaking for myself, we are not intimidated by a board member on the.
Gosh darn it.
Well,
I try to be intimidating.
It's all that practice in front of the mirror and everything. I mean,
Yeah. Correct.
I just want to say that sometimes the intelligence of the community members is intimidating to the board member, but it's just my humble observation as well as my experience.
And I'll second that. So we've now established what standing committees are. Now, how many are we going to have? And I think we all agree that there's going to be a finance committee, and I think we've now given enough information, enough stuff up there for the Infrastructure Committee certainly to continue on, okay? And I'm reluctant to burden the staff with another standing committee, but I think it's really needed. It may not have to meet every month, and maybe we can cut down on that. And maybe the infrastructure doesn't have to meet every month in the beginning either. But I would really like to have a policy committee. So, any other discussion? Director Steidel?
No, I had just left my light on.
That's okay.
I agree that those three, I don't know that anything rises to the level of a standing committee for any of the other items we've
Yeah,
discussed.
I think we can ad hoc most of the rest of it.
We might be able to, by having an infrastructure committee, that maybe we broaden it so it's like resource stewardship or something, because then they could be looking at the physical infrastructure, but also the environmental, the water
Conservation.
efficiency and conservation, and all of those things could be under an umbrella that would make a more clear mission that's at the policy level for that committee. So you make it something like, I don't know, you could call it almost anything, but if you broaden it so it's not just looking at the pipes and the wastewater plant and the other things, that maybe would give a clearer mandate to the committee that their goal is to look at the resources and how they're being appropriately managed.
Resource and infrastructure.
Resource management or something. Yeah, resource and infrastructure, Director Steidel just said, would be acceptable.
That works.
Definitely.
Instead of in infrastructure alone, it'll be resource and infrastructure.
Resources and
Standing committee.
infrastructure. With an S on the end, resources.
Yes, plural.
And I think that still, you still have infrastructure within that.
All right. Do we have a motion that we have those three?
I'll make the motion that we have a Resources and Infrastructure Committee.
Okay, so motion
I'd
seconded,
second.
and all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay.
May I make a comment?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to ask the three committees to think about sequencing and scheduling while we're
Absolutely.
developing a third committee that staff will be working with, creating agendas. We have to think about when you have regular meetings, you have to post 72 hours in advance, you have to maintain minutes, you have to maintain the agendas, you have to prepare them. So when you're talking about having more than one board meeting and then having three standing committees, they start to overlap, and that's what that staff member ends up doing, is solely focusing on those agendas. So if we could just keep in mind as the standing committees are developed and preparing their calendars, if they could work with myself and Haley to make sure that the sequencing or the calendaring of dates is compatible, that'd be great.
Yes, absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. So we'll wait for the committees to decide that on their own.
If I may make a suggestion?
At the microphone so we can hear you, please.
What if policy and infrastructure met every other month so that they only had they only had two standing committee meetings a month to deal with? Would that work?
I think that's got to be at the discretion of those committees, depending upon how much work they really want to
Okay.
get done.
I just
But
thought
But,
making it easier on staff.
you know, the idea of having these committees and expanding them somewhat will allow them to have some subcommittees that can do work, and every other month might make sense to those committees then, because there can be work done on issues and brought back to those committees on a every other month basis. So that does make some sense.
Yeah, that sounds
Okay.
good to me.
So that would be a suggestion we might make to them.
I would like to make a motion that we have the standing finance committee and the standing policy committee, because I think we only had one so far in a motion, right?
Okay.
So I move that we have a standing finance committee and a standing policy committee.
Okay, a second? Seconded by Director Howell. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you. I'd like to make a suggestion, and I'm just kind of ruminating this, or I don't know if that's the correct word, in my head with regard to obtaining grant funding. And perhaps that could be a subcommittee of the Finance Committee and members of that subcommittee also attend the infrastructure meeting to find out if something comes up at an infrastructure meeting where grant funding might be available. And that committee, let's say of 5 community members, because I've had people come up to me just walking around town saying they'd be interested in being involved. They've been involved in grant funding and they'd like to contribute in some fashion, to the district. So I think in having a grant funding committee, and they can meet, staff doesn't necessarily even have to be there. They can discuss on their own opportunities that they've seen for grant funding, and they maybe just come back to Finance Committee or Infrastructure and say, this is what we've discovered, and we'd like to make the suggestion of moving forward with it. Something like that. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure whether having them attend both meetings is going to work all the time, okay? But certainly, if they're identified, who's on that grant committee, then one of them should be able to, right, could attend the infrastructure when there's an issue like that. So, yeah, I'm good with that.
Just thinking about the implementation of a policy committee, one of the things that will need to happen is I think there maybe needs to be an ad hoc committee at first to do a review of all the policies, because I don't think the board even knows maybe it is just doing the 2 things, the affordable housing and then the section, is it section 4 and section 8 or something, and we send that off to the policy committee. Maybe that was the intention and I missed that. But otherwise, setting the priorities of whether or not, which policies do we have, which ones do we not have, and this is a discussion that Director Steidel has brought up before too. So
The other thing with policies too is that, some are obviously board level policies providing direction, and some kind of straddle the line between a policy and a procedure that actually flows more into a staff environment. And we will probably have to spend some time, looking at those realistically and deciding where they need to reside also.
as much as I want a policy committee, I think we really need to be clear about what it is that committee is going to be doing. If it's not going to be a board discussion, since we don't really have we don't have the lay of the land like we do with finance. We have the lay of the land more. We have the lay of the land more of the infrastructure committee. I'm not sure what the lay of the land is yet. I know we need a lot of work on the policies. It's clear there isn't enough structure in the policies to help support the staff and the general manager. So we definitely need to address it. I'm just trying to picture how that's going to be implemented.
Okay, I think my suggestion would be that the board initially set some goals for each of these three committees and for the others that we come up with. Then allow those people to meet, take those suggestions, formulate theirs, bring them back to the board, and get approval by the board of what their goals are from there.
Thank you. That gives me much more clarity.
Yeah, I think that convening meeting that they have, that's what they should be doing, is establishing their goals and their what they intend to accomplish. Okay. And then we can go ahead and bring that back to the full board. The full board looks at those and says that you're on the right path. Right. Or you're not on the right path. Exactly. Okay. Yes, Director Howell.
A question. Director Farmer raised an interesting point. There are many people who have come forward and said, can we help one way or another? Is it possible, and I think it was raised by Director Steidel, that a subcommittee of a standing committee, can that subcommittee consist of people who are not on the standing committee? Is it possible for the standing committee to go out and recruit from the community to get assistance in some of their, if they have a subcommittee formed for some particular task? Is that something that we would encourage?
I don't see that there's any problem with that. There's going to be 2 or 3 people from the standing committee on it, and then if there are other people from the public that would like to join in and
Because ad hocs are public meetings too.
basically ad hoc.
They're
And
allowed, they're allowed
do
to
that,
attend
so.
it. I mean, the public can attend ad hoc meetings. They just don't have the same noticing
We
level.
just need to make sure that they're announced
Right,
or published or whatever
right.
when they're having those.
Does
Okay.
Mr. Ogren have a
Staff
thought?
does not need to attend, but they need to be.
Right.
On the point of whether ad hoc committees have to be public meetings, my understanding is that they do not have to be
Right.
public meetings.
Right, but you can make them public meetings,
Yes, so it's
right?
all going to depend on
What's being discussed.
what's being discussed and
and
everything.
and- Correct. Thank you.
I guess I should follow up on that real quickly because I don't want to create an impression of the lack of transparency. But sometimes an ad hoc committee is just getting together to do homework and, something like that. Not really deliberate on recommendations, but reviewing a whole bunch of different grant programs and figuring what might or may not be applicable.
I know I'm being recognized, but in the past, with previous boards, one of the main complaints from many members of the community was that ad hoc committees, in other words, just 2 members of the board meeting in secret, folks felt that they didn't get the community didn't get information that they needed, and that decisions were kind of being made behind closed doors. I think it's nice to hear that there's actually an option where members of the community can attend an ad hoc meeting. I think people, just knowing that, might feel a little bit more comfortable, because that was, I'm not going to say never, because that's a very long time, but I don't recall that being done in the past.
Okay. So we need to appoint chairman of 3 standing committees, okay? Do we have any volunteers or suggestions as far as that goes? Yes.
Yeah.
As we just decided there was a board member. So it's going to be one of us. So, Director Rice.
I don't know how the other directors feel, but I would be happy to work on the policy committee.
Okay.
That'd be something that I've been working in my brain on since 2012. So it would be nice to work outside my brain on it if there isn't any too much. But I also think that Director Steidel would do a great job on that committee if she wanted it. So I don't want to.
Well, and that's I would find it interesting too, but go for it.
Okay. Director Howell.
Well, I've started on the infrastructure committee, so I'm happy to stay there. It interests me.
Okay.
All
right.
Anyway, I'm volunteering.
Director Farmer was also on that
Right.
committee.
So,
You okay with Director Howell doing that, or would you rather? You have seniority, so you can knock him off if you want. Okay. Good. So we need a.
So you want to draw straws?
Well, honestly, I think Director Steidel would be the best person for the Finance Committee. Being the president is more than just doing the meetings, and there's a lot of things that happen. I think that it would be helpful because you have a slightly longer history and understanding, and you've been an excellent chair of that committee, but I also think Director Steidel has done a really nice job in understanding some of the ins and outs of the finances, and if she's willing, I would like to see that happen, but you guys can arm wrestle for it if you want.
I don't need to arm wrestle. I agree with you. I'm going to.
You made that way too easy for him.
When I started going down the list of ad hoc committees and my name kept popping up on those, I think I'm going to be busy enough. So if you are willing to take that on, I'd be much appreciative. Okay, thank you. All right, so we've decided on the chairpersons of the 3 standing committees.
Let me make a motion so that it's absolutely clear. We will have Director Howell as the chair of the Resources and Infrastructure Committee, and Director Steidel as the chair of the Standing Finance Committee, and Director Rice as the Standing Policy Committee chair. That's a motion.
Any second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Now we move to ad hoc committees. We have a long list of those, so do we want to go ahead and just debate and list out which ones we're going to have first?
Why don't we do them in order? I'm just going to suggest that President Pearson and I are the SWF ad hoc, because I have the historical of going to the meetings up to this point. And as president, I think it's an important role for you to be there, be part of that committee.
Yeah.
And so if there's no objections to that, ad hoc committee being president and myself.
Okay, so,
Is that okay with you, sir?
yeah, that's fine with me.
So do we just have these 3
My-
conversations? Sorry.
That's right.
It's just these 3 ad hocs, or
And I think we had some others. The ad hoc grants, I think, is going to be a subcommittee of finance. So
and then we've got Tyler in code and audit.
Right.
I think the president and the vice president should be the audit ad hoc. I think that makes
Yeah,
sense to me.
Cindy and I were doing it already. We went to that one meeting.
Oh, she's also the chair of the finance committee, so maybe that's a better combination.
Oh, okay.
You want to be on the audit committee?
Well, I'm not necessarily a finance kind of guy.
All right, so,
To the disappointment of myself sometimes. I'm sure some of you do more things.
Well, okay, but I've got another job for you.
I'm sure, yeah. If I could say this,
Mike,
if I could say this, and I hope that President Pearson doesn't feel I'm speaking out of line, but over the past months since he was appointed to the board, he and I have gotten together on a relatively frequent basis, let's say once a month, just to discuss our observations of how things are. And I have a feeling that that's probably going to continue, because let's put it this way, and this is okay, I don't know how to use the words exactly. This is doesn't have anything to do with anybody sitting on this board right now or in the past. But there have been times when presidents and vice presidents didn't necessarily work in a totally cohesive, compatible, whatever you want to call it, manner. Whereas Director Pearson and myself, just as directors, even though we don't necessarily agree on everything, we have a sense of mutual respect and trust of one another. And I'd like to think that we're probably going to be doing a lot more than previous presidents and vice presidents have done, and just being more effective in doing stuff. Like I say, that's no reflection on the previous 2 years of President Rice, because she was a very effective president. And I'm going to leave it at that. And I hope that President Pearson doesn't mind what I just said.
Not at all. We do get along very well. We have very good meetings. We don't agree on everything, but as Vice President Farmer said, we have very much respect for each other's opinions and where we're coming from, and so we do get along, and it'll make for a good team, I think. So,
if I could just add one more thing, we both really. Well, sorry. Well, what can I say?
No,
I don't have any option here. We both really care about this community, and one thing that we came to an agreement on very quickly was how much respect we have for the people that live in this community and want to do the best for them, for all members of the community.
agreed. Thank you. All right. So the audit committee, okay.
So you and I.
Is, yes, myself and Director Steidel. The ad hoc water efficiency is now going to be basically a part of the resource and infrastructure committee.
Can we direct that committee to make that a subcommittee? Do we need to do that?
I think we can put it in the directions to them. Okay. There won't be an ad hoc community outreach because I think we've decided that that's going to be a board thing. Ad hoc GM search is already Director Rice and I. I don't know that we need an ad hoc legislative or not. Perhaps Mr. Ogren could advise us whether he thinks that that's necessary or not. The upcoming this year, 2019, is the off year for actually getting things done in the Assembly and Senate, right?
That's true. There was, legislation that was passed in 2018 that the district is going to have to address. From a legislative approach, in part, I would normally think that staff would be discussing legislation with the president and vice president, as sort of the executive members of the board.
And when I come across things, because I'm signed up to so many listservs, I forward them to the president and the general manager for their consideration whether it makes sense to deal with it or not.
Yeah. So is there anyone on the board that feels that we need that ad hoc committee? Okay.
Not right now.
Getting those all the way around. All right. I think we do.
Grants.
Yeah, grants will be a part of the finance committee. Chairperson Steidel.
Emergency services.
I would like to have a ad hoc committee for Tyler Encode, okay? Just to work with the staff on what's going on with that and to keep the board updated as far as what's going on with that and the progress being made and that kind of thing. It doesn't have to meet that often. It can meet once a month with the finance manager and the Tyler people or whatever, and just see how it's going along. I think the other thing that they can do is they can offer input as to how it might transition and also what reports the board is looking for, okay, out of that software, okay? And for that reason, I would like to nominate not only Director Howell, but also Vice President Farmer for that particular ad hoc, because Director Farmer is always looking for the right report to get his information, and now he can see if he can get those. So.
Be careful what you ask for.
Did you say Tyler Encode? Is that what you said? I guess I'll try to do that, but I have enough trouble just, getting my emails in proper order. I'm not a real kind of.
But it's about conceptually. What reports do you want? What information do you want, and how do you want it?
Okay, you know what? I'll give it a try. Nothing to lose.
I second that.
Well, thank you. I couldn't get. Well, never mind. I will go.
The press would like to make a comment.
Just a quick suggestion for those people who are watching on television. Explain to them what Tyler Encode is.
Oh. Tyler Encode is the new financial software that the district has purchased but has not yet implemented. We will be implementing it hopefully over the next 6 months so that it's in time for the new budget year. That may be pressing it, but we should.
Well, I'm sure that we'll be providing Director Howell and Vice President Farmer some updates on the scheduling on the implementation.
Good. All right, have we gone through the ad hoc?
President Pearson, I think you, during the prior agenda item, had also discussed the possible ad hoc committee for emergency services.
Yes. And I am going to certainly be on that. Does anyone else want to volunteer for that one?
Let's see, let me count.
Right. We'll get to liaisons here in a minute, and we'll have few of those, I hope. But
I would,
Yeah, good.
okay,
I
Director
think-
Steidel will be the other one.
Yeah. Director Steidel and President Pearson on that.
Yes. All right, so that handles ad hoc assignments.
The one other thing is, do we want to create an ad hoc for the possible regional project? And then we can dissolve it if it turns out we're not even really going to, before we get off the starting block? Or do you want to have that be an agenda item like in January, February or something?
Let's make that an agenda item, a quick one in January.
Our preparation of the January staff reports right now is right upon us.
Okay.
I think feasibility-wise, it'd probably be better in February so that we can reach out to San Simeon a little bit and
Yeah, that makes
report
sense.
back to your board.
Yeah, that's fine.
Since I've reached out to the regional board, I'm happy to hand that over to the staff to deal with, but I think that the regional board response I got, which I included, I think I included you on that, President Pearson, that either I need board consensus that I can move forward with kind of setting up some meeting or handing it over to staff. I don't care. Either way, I just need to have authorization essentially, either to or no, hand it off to staff, because I'm not attached to it one way or the other. I just want to make sure it gets done.
I think that would probably be better if the staff took that up.
That's
actually.
what I was thinking too, but we didn't have anybody to give it to, so.
And, with respect to Director Rice's previous conversations, and, a short meeting for a download on what you learned and everything would be helpful.
Nothing yet, because John Rocky's on vacation.
Yeah,
That's
she
what I
can-
learned.
she can
John
say-
There we are,
Rocky's
we're
on
done.
vacation. I'll
Yeah.
forward you the emails that were sent in case you weren't in the loop on those.
Right.
Cool.
Okay.
One less thing for me to do. Woohoo.
Would you like us to repeat the notes that we have on the different ad hoc committees and the assignments that appear to be tentative right now? And
Yes.
if it all met concurrence, if we got these right, then any director could say, I so move. And so the GM search existing, it's President Pearson and Director Rice. The SWF is Director Rice and again, President Pearson. The Emergency Services, President Pierce and Director Steidel. The General Manager search, existing and continuing, President Pearson and Director Rice. The Ad Hoc Tyler In Code, Director Howell and the enthusiastic Vice President Farmer. The Ad Hoc Audit Committee, President Pearson and Director Steidel. And I think that captures it unless I missed. Yeah.
I so move.
So moved. Second? Seconded. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay. Thank you very much for that summary, Mr. Ogren.
I'm not hearing any yelling from the crowd, so I'm guessing that there's not any additional.
Yeah. I don't see any hands going up.
It's kind of cold in here.
They're frozen.
I'm sorry. I did turn off the heat after a while because it was getting really warm in here. The heat here operates on an on-off switch, okay? And, well, there is a thermostat, but I think the thermostat is set at like 80. So if you don't watch out, you can get roasted in here. So I apologize to all of you if you're getting cold out there. We're going to speed right through the rest of this, I assure you. Liaisons. I don't think a liaison with the CCHD is needed. If there is something that we need to get together with them on, and there is currently, we can do that through ad hoc, or staff can handle what needs to get done. Liaison with...
Just a quick question. Does staff get the agendas from all of these different agencies? So if you see something coming up, I mean, I don't know if there's any.
I get the agenda from CCHD.
Okay.
I do. And I think you do too, don't you? No?
I mean, I know
Yeah.
it only comes out 3 days ahead, but at least it would give us a heads up if there were some reason, like, because they take an action that would require us to
Yeah.
have somebody start going.
Yeah. I don't think there is, but
No, I don't.
if it ever
that's
comes
silly.
up, I think
If you're not on the agenda list. then-
President Gray would probably get in touch with me anyway, so.
Usually for me, what happens is chief informs me.
NCAC will be,
Well, actually, I could certainly do it, but Director Howard mentioned that he would like to get more oriented to CC.
Your mic.
Thought it had it on all the time. And I finally turned it off. And, I could certainly do that, but Director Howell had mentioned that he was interested in getting more familiar with NCAC and its interactions. So if that's the case, then I think that'd be excellent.
I just wanted to comment that I also been attending the NCAC meetings and actually been reporting back to the board, but I have no problem with Mr. Howell doing it if he wishes to.
I think that's good because it also prevents a conflict between
Absolutely.
Yeah.
your service there. Because there isn't any reason that you can't do both, but being the liaison and makes it,
Optics.
yeah.
Liaison-
Yeah, so Director Howe, yeah, I like that.
Director Al for NCAC. School Board, again, I don't think there's any need for one of those, unless somebody else feels there is one. The Fire Safe Focus Group is taken care of by the Emergency Services Group, because I will attend that. FFRP has been Vice President Farmer in the past. Is that still an interest for you, I'm sure?
Excuse me, yeah. Certainly, considering I've been involved with the Fiscalini Ranch and since 1992, so it's something I love, have a passion for.
Forest Committee, again, Director Howell has asked to get on that, if that's okay with you, or if you'd rather keep it.
Well, I think I've been involved with it for a while, and if nothing else, and I feel kind of strange saying this, I take in the walk in the woods every day. I don't know if that means that I'm more qualified to be on the Forest Committee meeting, but it's something that I'd prefer to continue doing if Director Howell doesn't mind.
So Director Farmer will be the, Vice President Farmer will be the liaison to both the FFRP and Forest Committee, as it has been. I don't think we need a liaison with pros. What I would suggest is that we add the chairman of the pros commission to speak at every one of our meetings right after the fire chief and update us on what they've done.
Could it be or his designee?
Or his designee, absolutely.
Better chance.
No, I like that idea. I think that's good. And if there's nothing to report, there's nothing to
They
report.
don't- they don't show
The
up, I
sheriff
guess.
always has a count of crimes, so.
Right. And we're always well informed by both the sheriff and the chief. So and pros has got a lot going on. So I'd like to see them come at least in the beginning.
I like the idea.
The liaison with San Simeon CCSD or CSD. I'd like to postpone that to see if we end up with this ad hoc committee.
I'd kind of like to continue to attend those, but I can go to those and not have it be a paid meeting. I don't have a problem with that, because part of this is these are board authorized. So I don't have a problem with that. And then if we end up having to do one, we can deal with it then.
Well, how does the rest of the board feel? Would you like a report back on what is going on there specifically?
In the last meeting, Supervisor Gibson was there, and we got the report about the Coastal Commission, so.
Yeah, occasionally there is need for.
This is our neighbor.
So Director Rice will be the San Simeon CSD. Next one is Tourism Board. I see no reason to have anybody to go to that, but if somebody else does, we can. Director Behringer was our liaison to that, and that was because he was on the board. Is he currently president? Okay. But I don't.
There could be some coordinating things, but probably not right away.
Right. We'll surprise them when we ask them to raise their rates and give the money to us. Liaison to the Chamber of Commerce, not needed. I talk to the president of the Chamber of Commerce every other week, whether I want to or not.
And if you find out something that would affect the CCSD, you would report it.
He and I are friends, so
Okay.
we chat, and if there's anything that is about the CCSD, he picks up the phone and calls me, so
Okay.
we'll find out about it. And that's the ones that are on the list. Are there other ones that aren't? Yeah, it's on, I'm looking at the proposed committee. Well, I think that's it. Okay, would you like to read those back so that we have a record?
So the notes indicate the liaison for NCAC is Director Howell. For FFRP is Vice President Farmer, as well as for the Forest Committee, Vice President Farmer. With San Simeon CSD is Director Rice, and those were the only four that I had.
Can I make a radical suggestion and see how it flies? sometimes in the past, this board has not been the friendliest with some of the organizations in town, but I noticed last year on Earth Day, Green Space put together a really successful event where the community was out there. They had a water efficiency person doing demonstrations of I think it was a dual plumbing something or other. Perhaps it's a time to be reaching out to be going to the Green Space meetings or something, because they've really done a good job on outreach, and we could learn something from them. And if we could be coordinating with them, since they are the local land conservancy and they have a lot of properties that are in open space, I mean, there is an overlap that might call for it. Now, whether they would want that or not, I have no idea, but it's just a suggestion that we don't necessarily need to do anything with right now, but it might not be a bad idea to look at.
I can investigate that. I've been involved with Green Space over the years in a variety of different ways, and good friends with Rick Hawley, as well as Mary Webb. So I can just ask them if they'd be interested in having one of us board members involved.
Good. Director Farmer is going to investigate and see if that's a avenue we want to pursue. Okay.
So moved on the list that Mr. Ogren
yes.
read.
And we have a second from Director Howell, as usual. And all those in favor? And all those opposed? All right. Is there any other business? There is one thing that a member of the public came up to me and suggested, and I'd like everybody to think about it because it's about public outreach. And that is that if the dining hall, or whatever this space over here is called, is available during the Friday afternoon time period while the farmer's market is on, if one of the directors would sit in there and have kind of an open forum, answer questions or take comments or whatever on each Friday. We could rotate that, and whoever doesn't have anything else to do and is going to the farmer's market anyway, why they could sit in there from 3 to 4 or something like that. We could make a sign that says that the director is inside if you want to come in.
The doctor is in? Yeah. Yeah.
Got it.
It's a little sign like
A director.
Charlie Brown, a director is in.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
All right. Well, we may come up with a schedule or something at the next meeting. Okay.
Cool. I like that idea.
All right. Any other business?
Are we doing something with the Water Resource Advisory and the Regional Water Management Group that are listed here?
Those look like they'd be staff.
Are they going to be served by staff?
President Pearson,
Yes.
members of the board, so we were able to look up a resolution previously adopted by your board,
That's right.
and it provides that essentially that your general manager makes a staff assignment in the event that your board wanted to make representation. Then our recommendation would be we'd come back in the January meeting with a resolution to modify that existing resolution. But as it stands right now, those appointments are made by your acting general manager.
That's fine with me to
Yeah,
continue that way.
I don't see any reason to change that. I think that Monique is capable of picking out people it would be a good idea that at the next regular meeting that you let us know who that is, just so that we know who you've given that wonderful duty to.
Well, that is kind of how the way that we got the big grant for the
Right.
emergency
Right.
plant was.
Yeah, we do have a grant out there hanging that's probably
And
not
I'm
going to
sure the
happen
county
until-
wants to see somebody
until later,
from here,
but,
there.
Yeah, we need to be there. That's for sure. All right? All right, adjourned. Oh.
No, it's, as sometimes happens as a member of this board, I kind of occasionally drift off into my own world at the most inopportune time. Some might say, well, yeah, Harry, that's what you do for about 4 hours every once a month. But so at the end of the part one of this particular meeting, that's kind of what I was doing. And we were ending with the goals. And I had written down my vision, not realizing, well, Harry, you should have talked about your vision when we were talking about goals. So if I could just read that now, is that okay? Do I get approval of that? It's only going to take a minute, okay? So anyway, this is my vision for the future of our. Thank you, Director Steidel, for having a sense of humor in me reading this. I appreciate that so much. So my vision, okay, for Cambria is to become a more forward-looking, not just fiscally responsible, but environmentally conscious district and community, and perhaps investigate what other cities and towns have done and being more proactive, efficient in this area, whether at the governmental level, like the district itself, or in actions taken by the residents of the community or the business interests of the community. Become a more cooperative and open-minded, less adversarial and self-interested community, which has been an issue for a long time. And then finally, examine to the fullest how our community, Cambria, can become as Ms. Heinrichs has often stated, a model community, living in harmony as citizens of our town, as well as being responsible stewards of the natural environment, of course, being one of the real assets of this community, as well as the really cool business district. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will be meeting at some future time.
Thank everyone for
Yes.
hanging in.
Yes, thank you all
guys all
for
should get
coming and
medals. We
hanging
just
in
don't
till the
campaign
very
for them.
end.
Yes.
And it's kind of shown that we can have evening meetings, so I think that's on the agenda for January is to have a few of those, just so that some of you can make it that couldn't make it during the day. So, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.